Good morning. Welcome again to this another series lecture about electrical wiring simulator or EWS. Today we're going to perform the fourth activity under the relays module. Okay, so we can click this menu and then let's proceed to the uh, fourth activity, which is the holding the alternating lamps. This is quite similar to what we did in the previous lecture. However, we will be adding a holding contact. Okay, so let's click the play and explain the functionality of the circuit. Let's play normal mode. Okay, and then let's explain first the circuit. Okay, how the circuit works. So what we did in the previous lecture, if we press this PB2, okay, assuming that this PB1 and this R1 is not yet in the circuit in the previous lecture, so PB2, if you press this one will be energized, and then this one will turn on, this one will be off. But at the moment we released our finger in this PB2, this PL3 will return to its initial state, which is off, and then this one will be turned on since this is a normally closed here. However, what we want to do here is if we want to press this one, okay, press and release, okay, one click and release, this R1 will remain in its original or energized state, and then this one will remain turned on. Okay, this one will remain off. However, if we want now to de-energize or to turn off this PL3 and then de-energize this R1, we can now click the PB1. Okay, so this R1 here represents the holding contact. So how does this work? Okay, take note guys that although we explained it already in the previous module in the magnetic contactors, but if you go directly to the relays activity, so we have to explain it again. Okay, so this R1, take note, if you press this PB2 here, press this PB2, the current now will now be able to flow through this line here. So from PB1, PB2, press this one, PB2, and then this R1 will be in its energized state. Take note, if this is energized, all the normally open in the circuit will be open. Normally open will be closed, and all the normally closed will be open. So in this particular case here, this one will close. Okay, this one will close, this one will close, this one will open. So let's analyze first the moment this one will close. Okay, and then your finger is still in this PB2. Okay, you have your finger here, so energize, and then this one will close. So if the current, there are two paths for the current to flow. It can flow through this path here, okay, which is still turned on because your finger is still in this PB2, and then this one, since this already is closed, so the current can also flow through this path here. Okay, so two ways, this one and this one. So if you're going to remove your finger here, the current can still able to flow through this path here, the holding path. Okay, so that's how this relay remain its state in its energized state. Okay, so how are we going to turn off or to de-energize this relay? So we have to interrupt the current connection through this path here. Okay, through this path here. So how do we do that? By pressing this PB1. Take note that this PB1 is a normally closed push button. Okay, so if you're going to press this one, it will create an open circuit here, an open line, so it will not allow the current to flow through this other part here. Hence, we can now the current through this uh, R1 will be interrupted. Okay, if there is no current flowing through this R1, it will return to its de-energized state. So if this is de-energized, this will return to its original state, which is normally open. Okay, so if you release this hand, de-energized state, and then this one is already off, this one is already on. Okay, so something like that. So we have to wire this circuit first, and then let's try to simulate for us to visualize what happens in the circuit. So let's connect first this level here, and then let's connect this one, and then that one, this one. Okay, so we start with 24 volts to the input of the PB1. Okay, 24 volts to the input of the PB1. Okay, next, the output of the PB1 should be connected to the input of the PB2. Okay, oops. Should do it that way. Next, the output of the PB2 connected to the 13 of the R1. So take note guys that the 13 and 14 is the coil of this R1, and then also take note the labeling of this component. This is R1, 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 and R1. It means that this belong to a single component. In this particular case, this component here, the relay number 1. So the output to the 13 of the R1. Okay, and then the 14 to the negative or to the 0 volts of our power supply. Okay, next, we have to connect this holding contact here, the 9 and 5. So this 9 should be connected to the input of the push button number 2. So the 9, which is this one, to the input of the PB2. And then the 5 here, the 5, which is this 5 here, to the output of the PB2. Okay, 5 to the output of the PB2. Okay, so that's the holding contact. Now we can connect this 10 here. So this 10, which is in this particular case here, so we can connect this one to the 24 volts or to the input of the PB1 here. So I think it would be easier if we connect this one to the input of the PB1, which is here. So this is number 10, terminal 10. So take note, number 10 is here. So we will be using this part here. So in the last lectures, we use this one here. So the holding contact is connected to 9 and 5. And now we will be using this portion here. Okay, so the 10 connected to the input of the PB1. 10 to the input of the PB1. Next, the 6 to the input of the PL3. 6, which is this one here. 6 to the input of the PL3. Okay, and then the output of the PL3 to the 14 or to the 0 volt or the negative part of the power supply. We can connect this one to the negative part of the power supply. Okay. Oops. To the negative part. Oops. Yeah. Okay, next is we have to connect this part here, the third rung. Okay, actually this is the fourth rung. Okay, so 10, take note the 10 is already connected, so this represents a single component here, the 10. Okay, so we have to connect now the 2. Okay, the 2 to the input of the PL2. So the 2 to the input of the PL2, this 2 here, to the input of the PL2. And then the output of the PL2, we can connect this one to the 0, the 14, or through the output of the PL3. I think it would be easier if we connect this one, the output of the PL2, to the output of the PL3. Okay, output of the PL2. Let's connect it to the output of the PL3. Okay, let's zoom out. Okay, so what do we expect here? The moment we turn on or we submit our click the submit button, and when the simulation starts, we can assume that this PL2 will turn on. Okay, and then this PL3 is turned off, and then this R1 is in its de-energized state. Okay, submit, pass, 11 wires connected correctly. Okay, click this one. Okay, the although I already released my finger in this PB2, this PL3 remain in its on state. Click the stop. Okay, so PL2 is now turned on. So this one is its initial state. Okay, let's click again the PB2. So PL3 is now turned on, and then PL2 is turned off. I'm going to release my hand in this PB2. So the PL3 remains in its on state, and then the R1 remain in its energized state. Okay, so this is how powerful the holding contact here, these two wires here. Okay, so see you in the next lecture.